It was 9:15 p.m. on a Friday night in Manhattan when everything changed. Nia, a pregnant black woman in an expensive designer maternity dress, sat alone at a corner table by the window, nervously checking her phone. She'd been waiting for 25 minutes, clearly uncomfortable as other diners stared and whispered. Her hand instinctively moved to her 7-month belly, feeling her baby kick as if sensing her mother's distress. The pink silk clung to her curves, the fabric costing more than most people made in a month, but all she felt was the weight of judging eyes. That's when Kelly, a white waitress with bitterness etched into every tired line of her face, made her move. Without warning, Kelly dumped an entire pitcher of ice water across Nia's $4,500 dress. The freezing water soaked through to her skin as Kelly leaned in close and hissed with pure venom. "Oops, my bad. Maybe you should go back to whatever hood you crawled out of instead of playing dress-up in places meant for real class." The entire restaurant went silent. Every conversation stopped. Every fork froze mid-air. Every champagne flute paused halfway to lips. Nia sat there, 7 months pregnant, water dripping from her ruined designer outfit onto the white marble floor. Her hands trembled as she felt the cold water seeping through to her skin, the shock of it making her gasp. And for a moment, a terrible, frightening moment, she worried about her baby. She felt him kick frantically, as if he could sense the violation, the hatred, the danger. The humiliation burned deeper than the cold water ever could. It seared through her chest like fire, the kind of shame that makes you want to disappear, to cease existing. But instead of breaking down, Nia's eyes flashed with controlled fury. She stood up slowly, water still cascading from her dress, droplets catching the restaurant's soft lighting like diamonds of disgrace, and looked Kelly dead in the eye. Her voice trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the sheer effort it took to contain her rage and protect her unborn child from the stress flooding her system. "You have no idea what you just did," Nia said, her voice barely above a whisper, but carrying a weight that made everyone in the restaurant lean forward to hear. "You have no idea who you just attacked." Then something incredible happened. Nia reached into her designer purse with shaking hands, pulled out exact change for her untouched meal, and placed it on the table along with a $500 tip. The cash sat there like an accusation, like evidence of everything Kelly had assumed she wasn't. As Nia walked toward the exit with her head held high, those who looked closely could see the tears she was fighting back, the way her breath caught in her throat as she tried to maintain her dignity, one hand protectively cradling her belly. Kelly stood there in shock, the empty pitcher still in her hands, but deep inside, a tiny voice whispered that something felt terribly wrong about what she'd just done. The other diners were staring at her now, not at Nia, and their expressions ranged from disgust to horror. Kelly turned to her coworkers, forcing a smirk to hide the growing unease in her chest. "Finally put her in her place," she muttered, but her hands were shaking slightly as she cleaned up the water, and she couldn't quite meet anyone's eyes. But Kelly had no idea what was waiting outside. As Nia approached the black Mercedes S-Class parked in front of Celestial, a dangerously handsome man stepped out. This was Jae-won Park, Korean-American, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Kelly's monthly rent, aviator sunglasses glinting in the streetlights despite the darkness. And when he saw his wife's condition, the water stains on her dress, the barely contained tears in her eyes, the way she was trembling, her hand protectively over their unborn son, his expression shifted to something that would have terrified anyone who witnessed it. His jaw clenched. His hands, which had been relaxed at his sides, slowly curled into fists. And for just a moment, something dangerous flickered across his face, something that spoke of violence, of power, of connections that ran deep through New York's underground. "What happened?" Jae-won asked, his voice deadly calm as he gently helped his pregnant wife into the passenger seat, his hands tender despite the rage building inside him like a storm about to break. Naya looked back at the restaurant, then at her husband, her voice breaking as she said 4 words that would change everything. Someone needs to learn respect. If you want to see how this racist waitress's world completely falls apart when she discovers who she really messed with, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now and tell us where you are watching from, because what happens next will leave you speechless. And drop a comment telling me, have you ever witnessed discrimination like this in real life? Kelly Morgan was 28 years old, a single mother barely surviving in a city that seemed designed to crush people like her. She worked 3 jobs just to keep her head above water, waitressing at Celestial during weeknights, weekend catering gigs that left her feet bleeding, and overnight shifts stocking shelves at a grocery store in Queens where the fluorescent lights buzzed like angry wasps. Her cramped apartment was a constant assault of noise, neighbors fighting through paper-thin walls, sirens screaming past at all hours, her 9-year-old daughter Emma coughing in the night with symptoms Kelly couldn't afford to have investigated. The rent kept climbing, the bills kept piling up, and the $40,000 in debt her ex-husband had left her with sat on her chest like a boulder she'd never move. 3 weeks earlier, she'd been passed over for a management position at Celestial, a promotion that would have changed everything. It went to Keisha, a black woman who smiled too much and seemed to have everything come easy. Kelly had an incomplete nursing degree and crushing student loans that followed her like ghosts, reminding her daily of her failures. Her mother was deteriorating in assisted living, dementia stealing her memories, while the facility stole Kelly's money. Every night, Kelly lay awake in the dark, wondering why everyone else seemed to have it so easy while she worked herself to the bone for nothing. This wasn't Kelly's first attack. For months, she'd been targeting well-dressed Black and Asian customers with snide comments disguised as jokes, assumptions that they were all pretending to have money they didn't possess. Immigrants taking opportunities, she'd mutter to sympathetic coworkers. Affirmative action stealing jobs from people who deserve them. Management turned a blind eye because Kelly knew how to play the victim when complaints were filed, tears streaming down her face as she claimed she was being unfairly targeted for being white and struggling. What Kelly didn't know was that the woman she'd just humiliated was Dr. Nia Washington, a 30-year-old former Columbia University professor of African American literature who'd grown up in the Harlem projects and worked 3 jobs to earn her scholarship. Despite being married to wealth now, Nia had remained humble and kind, never forgetting where she came from. She volunteered at women's shelters in Harlem and Koreatown, spent her Fridays helping those society had abandoned, and was 7 months pregnant with a son she and Jae-won would name James. She was excited about motherhood, but terrified about raising a biracial child in an America that would judge him before he could speak. Jae-won Park, Nia's husband, was a man who'd built an empire from nothing. He'd immigrated from Seoul at age 12 with empty pockets and a hunger that never died, creating legitimate businesses, Park Construction, Park Security Solutions, Park Real Estate Holdings, several exclusive Manhattan nightclubs, while maintaining strategic connections to Korean organized crime, Chinese triads, and Russian networks. He kept his hands legally clean while his influence spread through New York like roots through concrete. In certain circles, his name commanded respect and fear in equal measure. People had threatened him with violence before, none had succeeded. But when he met Nia 3 years ago at a charity gala, something changed. She'd resisted his pursuit at first, concerned about his business dealings, but he'd won her over with genuine respect, cultural curiosity, and a commitment to building something completely legitimate for their future family. Now he loved her with an intensity that bordered on obsession, and his protective instincts were absolute. Celestial Restaurant catered to Manhattan's elite, celebrities, millionaires, power brokers who made decisions that shaped the city. Reservations took 3 to 6 months to secure. A single meal cost more than Kelly made in a week. It was a place where power met privilege, where the wealthy came to see and be seen. And Kelly, drowning in bitterness and resentment, had just attacked the wrong woman in the wrong place. She had no idea that within hours, Jaewon Park would begin learning everything about her life, discovering connections she didn't know existed, and systematically preparing to dismantle her world piece by piece. That same night, Naya was rushed to Mount Sinai Hospital with stress-induced contractions that ripped through her body like lightning. The doctors surrounded her with machines that beeped and hummed, their faces grave as they warned about premature labor, about the real danger threatening both mother and baby. Jaewon sat beside her hospital bed in the sterile fluorescent light, watching his wife sleep fitfully, her hand protectively cradling their unborn son even in unconsciousness. His jaw was clenched so tight it ached, his hands trembling with barely contained rage that threatened to consume him whole. Someone hadn't just disrespected his wife. Someone had threatened his unborn son's life. That was absolutely unforgivable. He stepped into the hospital hallway, pulled out his phone, and made a series of calls in rapid Korean, his voice deadly calm in a way that made passing nurses instinctively step back. Within hours, he had a complete dossier on Kelly Morgan, every detail of her pathetic life laid out before him like a dissection. And what he discovered made his lips curve into something that wasn't quite a smile. The connections were everywhere, intricate and hidden like spider silk. Kelly's ex-husband had borrowed $15,000 from one of Jaewon's Korean associates 6 months ago, money he'd never paid back. Kelly's mother's assisted living facility, the one draining her bank account, was owned by a subsidiary of Park Real Estate Holdings. Emma's school received substantial funding from Naya's educational foundation, money his wife had donated to help children who reminded her of herself. Kelly's apartment building in Queens had been quietly acquired just 3 weeks ago through a shell company ultimately controlled by Park Real Estate. Her car insurance ran through a company where Jaewon had cultivated relationships over years. Even Kelly's ex-husband's new employer was a contractor who worked exclusively with Park Construction, dependent on Jaewon's goodwill for every paycheck. The web was vast and hidden, touching every aspect of Kelly Morgan's life without her knowledge. Every thread, every connection, every vulnerability, all of it ultimately traced back to him. Jaewon realized with cold clarity that destroying Kelly would be almost too easy. He could make her disappear with a single phone call. He could have her evicted, fired, ruined before sunrise. But he didn't want easy. He wanted Kelly to understand exactly what she had done. His associates called within the hour, voices hard with barely restrained violence. They suggested more direct solutions, a beating in a dark alley, a disappearance that would never be solved, the kind of street justice that left no witnesses. Jaewon listened to each suggestion, then spoke in a voice that made grown men shiver. "My wife handles her own battles," he said, each word precise and cold as surgical steel. "But disrespect to my family will be handled with precision. She will lose everything, slowly, methodically, and she will never know why until I want her to know. No violence, no obvious connections, everything through legitimate business channels." He returned to Naya's bedside and began planning. Every move would be documented by his lawyers to ensure legal protection. Every action would appear as ordinary business operations, market adjustments, policy changes, routine reviews. Kelly Morgan would watch her life crumble around her like a building collapsing in slow motion, and she would never understand why the universe suddenly seemed to be conspiring against her. She would blame bad luck, cruel fate, an unjust system, everyone and everything except herself. And when she was finally desperate enough, when she had lost everything and stood on the edge of absolute destruction, only then would Jaewon reveal the truth. Only then would Kelly Morgan understand that the woman she'd attacked based on the color of her skin had been protected by a man who could dismantle lives with a whisper. Only then would the lesson be complete. Jaewon took his sleeping wife's hand and made a silent promise. Justice would be served, and it would be absolutely perfect. Within days, the viral video spread across social media like wildfire. Racist waitress attacks pregnant black woman at Celestial. The footage, captured by a diner's phone, showed everything. Kelly's venomous words, the water cascading over Naya's pregnant body, the stunned silence of witnesses. 5 million views in 48 hours, 10 million by the end of the week. Celestial began hemorrhaging high-profile reservations as celebrities and power brokers publicly canceled, their voices dripping with moral outrage. Kelly's hours were slashed from 45 to 20 per week. Her manager, cited declining business, wouldn't meet her eyes when she begged for explanation. Her weekend catering job, called on Friday, suddenly restructured, no longer needed. The overnight grocery position vanished due to budget constraints. 3 jobs gone in 7 days. Week 2 brought worse devastation. Her apartment rent increased by $600 a month. Building management cited market adjustments and new ownership policies, with cold indifference as Kelly sobbed into the phone, pleading for mercy she'd never shown others. What Kelly didn't know was that Park Real Estate had quietly acquired her building through a shell corporation, and policy changes were completely legal. Her car insurance premium spiked 75% after a routine review uncovered previous incidents that existed only in carefully fabricated paperwork created by Jaewon's people. Kelly screamed at customer service representatives until her voice went hoarse, but got nowhere. Her mother's assisted living facility called next, costs increasing by $800 monthly, citing enhanced care requirements. Kelly didn't know Park Real Estate owned that building too. By week 3, Kelly was drowning. Emma's symptoms worsened, fatigue, bruising, joint pain that made her daughter cry at night. Kelly took her to the emergency room despite her terror of the cost. Preliminary tests suggested a serious autoimmune condition. Follow-up appointments were needed immediately, appointments Kelly couldn't afford. Her ex-husband's debt collectors became more aggressive, threatening phone calls escalating to visits at her apartment door. Kelly discovered he'd borrowed from dangerous people, money that was now somehow her problem. She worked every shift she could find, but money evaporated like water on hot pavement. Bills piled up in towers on her kitchen table. Nothing made sense. Kelly blamed everyone: restaurant management for being incompetent, landlords for being greedy, insurance companies for being corrupt, the system for being rigged against people like her. Never once did she consider that her racism might have consequences. Instead, she doubled down, muttering to herself during sleepless nights, "This is all their fault somehow. Immigrants, affirmative action, people pretending to be something they're not." Her mental state deteriorated rapidly. Dark circles appeared under her eyes like bruises. She lost weight she couldn't afford to lose. She snapped at Emma over nothing, then lay awake consumed by guilt. She drank more to cope, cheap wine that tasted like regret. Meanwhile, in their Tribeca penthouse, Jaewon orchestrated every move with surgical precision, each catastrophe timed perfectly to maximize Kelly's desperation. When Naya discovered what he was doing, she felt dark satisfaction that surprised her. "I want her to understand what happens when you disrespect our family," she said, her voice carrying ice that made even Jaewon pause. The gentle Columbia professor was gone, replaced by someone harder, someone capable of watching another woman suffer without flinching. Her pregnancy complications returned, more contractions, more hospital visits, more stress directly caused by Kelly's attack. And with each trip to Mount Sinai, Jaewon's justification solidified like concrete. Kelly Morgan had threatened his son's life. She deserved everything coming to her, and more. In their Tribeca penthouse overlooking Manhattan's glittering skyline, Nia sat at the dining table reviewing files Jaewon had compiled on Kelly Morgan. Photographs, financial records, medical documents, every intimate detail of a woman's collapsing life laid bare under the soft lamplight. Nia saw Kelly's daughter Emma, sick and getting sicker. Saw Kelly's mother deteriorating in assisted living. Saw the desperate circumstances, the crushing debt, the impossible choices. She expected to feel compassion, the gentle mercy that had always defined her. Instead, she felt cold satisfaction that surprised and disturbed her in equal measure. "I thought you'd want me to stop," Jaewon said quietly, watching his wife's face. "This isn't like you." Nia's response shocked him. Good. She's a single mother with a sick child. Maybe now she'll understand what it feels like to be powerless, to watch someone you love suffer while others decide your fate. Jaewon saw something in his wife that unsettled even him, something hard and unforgiving where softness used to live. Nia stood and moved to the floor-to-ceiling windows, one hand protectively cradling her belly. "I was 7 months pregnant with our son," she said, her voice trembling with suppressed emotion. "Cold water soaking through to my skin. She called me names, treated me like garbage because of my skin color, in front of strangers who just watched. Some even laughed, Jaewon. They actually laughed." Her voice cracked completely. "I thought about our son. What if he's dark-skinned like me? What if he faces this every day? What if someone treats him like he doesn't deserve to exist, like he's less than human because of how he looks?" It was the first time Jaewon had seen his wife truly cry about the incident, and it broke something inside him. His protective rage intensified, consuming every rational thought. "What do you want me to do?" he asked, his voice barely controlled. Nia turned to face him, and her smile was sharp as a blade. "I want her to lose everything, just like she tried to strip away my dignity. And Jaewon, I want her to know it was me. I want her to understand that the woman she thought was beneath her, the woman she assumed didn't belong, was the one who brought her entire world crashing down." Jaewon felt a chill run down his spine. Had he created a monster, or simply freed his wife's suppressed rage? That night, Nia had contractions again, sharp, violent spasms that sent them racing to the emergency room. The doctors issued stern warnings, their faces grave. The baby's heartbeat was irregular, stress hormones flooding Nia's system and affecting their unborn son. Jaewon held her hand in the sterile hospital room, his jaw clenched with fury and fear. "This ends when you say it ends," he told her quietly, "but she will understand what she did." Nia squeezed his hand, her eyes hard with determination despite the pain. "She will, but first she needs to lose everything. Only then will she be ready to learn." Jaewon sat back, his mind drifting to his own experiences with racism. Being called chink on New York streets, told to go back to China despite being Korean, treated as perpetually foreign no matter how long he'd lived here. He understood Nia's pain through his own trauma, the accumulated weight of 1,000 small humiliations that eventually crushed your faith in humanity. But he also recognized that revenge was a path he'd walked before, and it led nowhere good. His internal conflict raged. Protect his wife's desire for justice, or protect her soul from becoming something neither of them would recognize. As he watched her sleep fitfully in the hospital bed, their son's heartbeat echoing through the monitor, Jaewon realized that Kelly Morgan's attack had done more than threaten his family. It had fundamentally changed the woman he loved, and he wasn't sure if that change could ever be undone. Kelly was at Celestial, barely working the few hours they still gave her, exhausted down to her bones and bitter as poison when her phone rang. Emma's school nurse, voice tight with urgency. "Mrs. Morgan, your daughter collapsed during recess. An ambulance is taking her to Mount Sinai. You need to come immediately." Kelly's blood ran cold. Time fragmented into sharp, terrible pieces. Racing outside, screaming for a taxi, Manhattan traffic becoming a nightmare of honking horns and gridlock while she sobbed in the back seat, begging the driver to go faster, faster, please God, faster. She arrived to find Emma in the pediatric ICU, her small body surrounded by machines that beeped and hummed with mechanical indifference. Emma looked so fragile, so pale, her skin covered in bruises Kelly somehow hadn't noticed through her own exhaustion and despair. How had she missed this? What kind of mother was she? Dr. Rahman, a kind-faced woman with tired eyes, delivered news that felt like a death sentence. Mrs. Morgan, your daughter has a rare autoimmune disorder. Her body is attacking itself. Without aggressive treatment, her organs will start to fail within weeks. The timeline was brutal. Treatment must begin within 72 hours. The cost was impossible, $75,000 for an experimental protocol. Kelly's insurance denied coverage immediately. Experimental treatments not covered, the letter said in cold corporate language that made her want to scream. I don't have that kind of money, Kelly whispered, her world tilting dangerously. There has to be another way. Dr. Rahman's expression was genuinely sympathetic. I'm sorry, this is her only chance. Kelly spent hours on the phone, desperation making her voice crack and break. Banks denied loans. Credit cards were maxed. Crowdfunding raised $3,000, not even 5% of what she needed. She called her ex-husband begging, sobbing into the phone, and he hung up without a word. Hospital billing offered payment plans, but the treatment wouldn't start without guarantees she couldn't provide. She sat beside Emma's bed, holding her daughter's small, cold hand, watching her sleep, feeling her heart shatter into pieces so small they could never be put back together. Then the cascade of disasters truly began. While sitting vigil, Kelly received a call, fired from Celestial, effective immediately. The manager's voice was cold and final. The viral video cost us over $300,000 in lost business. You're done. Don't come back. Kelly's pleas about Emma fell on deaf ears. The line went dead. Her landlord called next. Eviction proceedings had started. 7 days to vacate or be forcibly removed. Her mother's assisted living facility called minutes later. Payment was 60 days overdue. They needed $4,800 immediately, or her mother would be discharged to the streets. Then her ex-husband's debt collectors, voices hard and threatening. He told us you have money. We know where you live. We're coming for you. Kelly collapsed in the hospital hallway, sobbing so violently that security guards rushed over. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process how her entire life had disintegrated in 3 weeks. A security guard helped her up, genuine concern on his face, and she realized even strangers pitied her now. That's when the hospital social worker approached, a middle-aged woman with gentle eyes. Mrs. Morgan, I heard about your situation. I know this seems impossible, but there might be one option. There's a businessman in Manhattan who sometimes helps families in desperate medical situations. His foundation has saved lives when insurance companies abandoned people. His name is Jaewon Park. Kelly looked up through her tears, not recognizing the name, grasping at any thread of hope, no matter how thin. How do I reach him? The social worker's words felt like a lifeline thrown to a drowning woman. His office is at Park Enterprises in Midtown. But Mrs. Morgan, these decisions aren't made lightly. You'll need to present your case directly to him. Kelly clutched Emma's medical records like they were sacred texts, practicing her desperate speech in whispered fragments as she rode the subway to Midtown. She couldn't afford a taxi, was still wearing her stained work clothes, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, her eyes red and swollen from crying. Park Enterprises was a gleaming skyscraper that made her feel impossibly small. The lobby was all marble and steel, intimidating security guards, a beautiful receptionist who looked like she belonged in a magazine. Kelly explained the emergency with a trembling voice, and the receptionist made a quick call, her expression unreadable. "Mr. Park will see you immediately. Take the elevator to the 45th floor." Kelly was confused by the immediate access. Didn't wealthy men make people wait? But she was too desperate to question her luck. What she didn't know was that Jae-won had been waiting for exactly this moment. The 45th floor opened onto an executive suite with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan like a kingdom spread out below. A receptionist led Kelly to a corner office, and when the door opened, she saw a massive space filled with modern Korean art, expensive furniture that probably cost more than her yearly salary, and a view of the Empire State Building that stole her breath. A man stood with his back to her, looking out at the city, his suit perfectly tailored, his presence radiating something dangerous and controlled. "Mrs. Morgan, I've been expecting you." He turned around and Kelly's blood ran cold. She recognized him instantly, the man from outside Celestial 3 weeks ago, the one who'd helped the pregnant woman into the black Mercedes. Reality crashed down like an avalanche, burying her in terrible understanding. "Please, sit down," Jae-won said, his voice deadly calm. "We have much to discuss." Kelly stood frozen in the doorway, her legs refusing to move. "You're Kelly Morgan," Jae-won continued, moving to sit behind his massive desk. "The woman who dumped water on my pregnant wife and told her she should go back to the hood. That was my wife, Nia Washington. And yes, I've been systematically dismantling your life piece by piece since you decided to attack her based on the color of her skin." Kelly's legs gave out. She collapsed into the chair across from him, her mind reeling. You've been destroying my life?" "Destroying is such a harsh word. I prefer teaching consequences." Jae-won's expression was unreadable, controlled. "Every financial catastrophe, every bill, every problem, that was me. Your building, your mother's facility, your insurance, your ex-husband's debt, all connected to my businesses. I've been watching you struggle, Kelly, watching you blame everyone except yourself." Kelly broke down completely, sobs tearing from her throat. "My daughter, she's dying. She needs treatment. Please, I know what I did was unforgivable, but please don't punish her for my mistakes." Jae-won studied her for a long moment, his dark eyes revealing nothing. "Your daughter needs $75,000 to live, and you came to me for help. Do you see the irony? You assumed my wife didn't belong in that restaurant because of her skin color. You poured water on a pregnant woman, tried to humiliate her in front of strangers, and now you're sitting in my office begging the husband of the woman you attacked to save your child's life." "I know," Kelly sobbed, barely able to speak. "I know how this looks. I know I don't deserve your help. But Emma, she's just a little girl. She never hurt anyone. Please." Jae-won leaned back in his chair, his expression cold as winter. "Your daughter's treatment will cost exactly what you cost me in destroyed business, stress-related medical bills from my wife, and damage to my family's peace of mind. $75,000 seems like a small price to pay for the lesson you're about to learn about consequences." The door opened behind Kelly. She turned, and there stood Nia Washington, visibly pregnant, elegant despite everything, her eyes meeting Kelly's with an expression that held both pain and power. Nia entered the office, 7 months pregnant, moving with quiet grace despite everything. Kelly saw her and broke down completely, sobs tearing from somewhere deep and primal. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I was desperate, angry, drowning. I thought you were pretending. I thought you didn't deserve to be there. I was wrong. I was so wrong." Words tumbled out between gasping sobs, raw and unfiltered. "I'm a terrible person. I hurt you because I was in pain, because I was bitter about my own failures, because I needed someone to blame.
But you were innocent. You were just having dinner while pregnant, and I tried to destroy your dignity because of the color of your skin." Naya's voice was steady, but carried deep hurt that hadn't healed. "You decided racism was the answer to your problems. You decided to humiliate a pregnant woman because you were having a bad day and needed someone to blame for your pain." Kelly could barely speak through her devastation. "Please, please don't hurt my daughter. She's innocent. Please don't punish her for my mistakes." Long silence filled the office. Naya and Jaewon exchanged a look, an entire conversation happening in their eyes, years of marriage compressed into a single moment of understanding. "This is your decision," Jaewon said to his wife. "She hurt you. What do you want?" Naya approached Kelly and sat across from her, close enough that Kelly could see the tears gathering in her eyes. "Mrs. Morgan, look at me." Kelly raised her tear-streaked face, forcing herself to meet Naya's gaze. "I was 7 months pregnant when you poured that water on me. I could feel my baby, our son, kicking frantically like he sensed my distress. The cold, the shock, the humiliation. Do you know what that stress did to me? I spent that night in the hospital with contractions. I could have lost my baby because of what you did." Kelly sobbed harder, her whole body shaking. "I know, I keep thinking about it. What kind of monster does that make me?" Naya's eyes filled with tears, not for herself, but for the broken woman before her. A human one, flawed, broken, capable of cruelty, but also capable of change, if you choose it. She continued, her voice heavy with the weight of offering grace to someone who didn't deserve it. "You have a choice to make. My husband can let your daughter die, and no one would blame him. You targeted his wife, threatened his unborn child. In his world, that would justify far worse than denying you help." Kelly whispered, "I deserve that." "Or," Naya said, leaning forward, "you can choose redemption. But this isn't just about a public apology or going through motions. This is about fundamentally transforming who you are at your core. It's about facing the ugliness inside your soul and choosing to become someone worthy of your daughter's love and respect." Jaewon watched his wife, seeing her compassion return like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. Something in his chest loosened. Naya turned to him. "Save her daughter. But Kelly owes us more than money." Jaewon made a decision that surprised even himself. "I'm going to save your daughter's life, but then you're going to have a very serious conversation with me about what happens next." Kelly collapsed forward in relief, sobbing, "Thank you, thank you. I'll do anything." "Yes," Jaewon said quietly, "you will." Within hours, Jaewon arranged immediate payment to Mount Sinai. Emma's treatment began that night, a 10-hour procedure using an experimental protocol that pushed the boundaries of medical science. Kelly maintained vigil in the waiting room, unable to eat, unable to sleep, barely able to breathe. Naya visited, despite being pregnant, despite everything, and sat beside Kelly in the fluorescent-lit waiting room. Kelly turned to her, voice raw. "Why are you helping me? After what I did?" Naya placed a hand on her belly, feeling her son move. "Because my son will be born into a world where people will judge him by his skin color, where people will assume things about him because his mother is black and his father is Korean. I want him to grow up in a world where people can change, where redemption is possible. But that starts with people like you choosing to be better." Emma's surgery was successful. 3 days later, Kelly stood outside Celestial Restaurant, where her journey into darkness had begun, preparing to speak words that terrified her more than anything she'd ever done. She hadn't slept properly in days. Her prepared speech crumpled and discarded. This had to come from her completely broken heart.
A small crowd had gathered, cameras recording, some faces supportive, many openly hostile. Kelly's voice shook as she began. 3 weeks ago, I poured ice water on a pregnant black woman named Nia Washington because I assumed she didn't belong in an upscale restaurant. She paused, fighting tears. But the truth is so much worse than that simple sentence. I didn't just assume she didn't belong. I wanted to hurt her. I wanted to humiliate her because I was drowning in my own failures, and it felt good, for just a moment, to make someone else feel as small and worthless as I felt inside. Her voice broke completely. Nia Washington is brilliant, successful, kind. She volunteers her time helping people. She's everything I pretended she wasn't, everything I could never be. But even if she had been poor, even if she had been struggling exactly like me, what I did would still be completely unforgivable. Kelly looked directly at the camera, tears streaming down her face. I poisoned my own daughter with my hatred. She's 9 years old, and she was learning from me that it's okay to treat people badly because of their skin color. The woman I tried to destroy with my racism saved Emma's life, and I almost ruined my daughter's chance to become a good person by teaching her to hate. She was crying openly now, her whole body shaking. Her husband is Korean American. I've said horrible things about Asian people too. Blamed them for taking jobs. Said racist things I can't even repeat now without feeling sick. I was part of a system of cruelty that causes pain every single day to innocent people who just want to live their lives with dignity. Her voice became desperate, pleading, I'm not asking for forgiveness because I don't deserve it. I'm asking for the chance to spend the rest of my life proving that people can change, that the worst parts of ourselves don't have to define us forever, that love can grow in soil poisoned by hate. The video went viral, 5 million views in 48 hours. The comments section became a battlefield between those who believed in redemption and those who saw only performance. Kelly read every single comment, absorbing every criticism like penance. They're right to doubt me, she whispered to Emma. I have to prove it through actions. The cultural sensitivity training broke her all over again. Dr. James Chen and Dr. Angela Brooks led sessions where Kelly heard stories that shattered her remaining defenses. A Korean shop owner followed by police. A black executive mistaken for a janitor in his own building. A Latina doctor whose patients refused her care. A black mother whose children came home crying because classmates said they didn't belong. A Middle Eastern man called terrorist at the airport in front of his children. Kelly wrote a 50-page reflection on her own racism, tracing how centuries of oppression had lived in her assumptions, her resentments, her casual cruelty. I thought I was just venting frustration, she told the group, voice shaking, but I was continuing centuries of oppression. I was telling Nia and Jaewon they don't belong in spaces I decided were mine, but this country belongs to everyone. In Harlem, she met Keisha, the woman who'd gotten her promotion, volunteering at Hope Community Center. Keisha was initially cold, eventually honest. You know why I got that promotion? Better customer service scores, Kelly. I didn't make black customers feel unwelcome. I showed up on time and didn't complain constantly. I know, Kelly said quietly. I blamed you for my own failures. I'm sorry. Mrs. Dorothy, 75 and wise, told Kelly about living through segregation, watching her father beaten by police. Baby, you think what you did was small, but to that woman, it was every indignity she's ever faced. You weren't just one person being cruel. You were the weight of history pressing down on her. In Koreatown, Kelly learned about the model minority myth from Mr. Park, whose business had burned during the LA riots. She met Ji Hai, who endured China virus slurs despite being born in New York.
She helped the Kim family navigate systems while working 3 jobs, realizing immigrants often worked harder than anyone. At the Center for Pregnant Women, Kelly met Jasmine, 8 months pregnant, alone, scared. When Jasmine went into labor with no family available, she asked Kelly to stay. Through 12 hours of labor, Kelly held her hand. When baby Marcus was born with beautiful brown skin and innocent eyes, Jasmine let Kelly hold him. Kelly wept, whispering to the newborn, "I'm sorry for the world you're being born into, but I promise I'll fight to make it better." By her 6th monthly meeting with Nia, something had shifted. Not quite friendship, but mutual respect. "I believe you've changed," Nia said. "I see it in your eyes." "I still have bad days," Kelly admitted, "but now I recognize the thoughts, challenge them, choose differently." "That's all any of us can do," Nia said softly. And for the first time, Kelly believed redemption might actually be possible.
6 months later, Kelly Morgan stood in a different restaurant, in a different life, as a different person. Harmony Restaurant in Brooklyn was everything Celestial wasn't. Diverse staff, inclusive environment, a place where dignity mattered more than designer clothes. Emma was healthy now, back in school, transformed into a confident, kind, aware child who volunteered alongside her mother at community centers. Kelly had become an advocate for racial justice, speaking at diversity seminars, training restaurant staff, attending protests, donating what little she could to organizations fighting the systems she'd once perpetuated. She'd rebuilt her relationship with Emma on brutal honesty. "Mommy did something terrible," she'd told her daughter. "I hurt someone because of the color of their skin, but I'm working every day to be better." Emma had looked at her with wise eyes, too old for 9 years. "I'm proud of you, Mom. You made mistakes, but you're fixing them. That's what matters." Jaewon had arranged better care for Kelly's mother at lower cost, a gesture of forgiveness that made Kelly weep. He hadn't raised her rent again. He'd worked with her on reasonable terms for Emma's medical debt, allowing her to pay slowly, to rebuild with dignity instead of being crushed completely. On a Friday evening, Kelly was training a new waitress when she said the words that had become her mantra. "Every person who walks through that door is someone's child, someone's parent, someone's everything. When I was drowning in my own pain, I tried to drag someone else down with me. I almost destroyed an innocent family because I couldn't handle my own failures." The young waitress asked hesitantly, "But what if you really don't think someone belongs?" Kelly's response came from the deepest part of her transformed heart. "Then you remember that love is always the answer. Always, every single time. The moment you think someone doesn't belong somewhere because of how they look, you've already lost your own humanity." She looked around the room. Diverse staff, diverse customers, everyone treated with equal dignity. Mr. Jaewon Park and Mrs. Nia Washington could have destroyed me completely and been justified. Instead, they taught me that redemption is possible for anyone willing to do the hard, painful work of becoming worthy of it. The door opened. Kelly looked up, and time seemed to stop. Jaewon and Nia entered, Nia carrying an infant, baby James, 3 months old, with Nia's beautiful brown skin and Jaewon's striking eyes. Kelly's heart stopped, her hands trembling. This was the moment she'd been both desperately hoping for and absolutely dreading. Emma was working the hostess station, and she recognized them immediately from photos. "Welcome to Harmony. You're Mrs. Nia and Mr. Jaewon." Nia smiled warmly. "Hello, sweetheart. You must be Emma. Your mom has told us so much about you." "You saved my life," Emma said simply. Jaewon's stern expression softened in a way Kelly had never seen. "You're very welcome, Emma." Kelly approached, her heart pounding with anxiety, gratitude, and overwhelming emotion threatening to spill over. "Dr. Washington, Mr. Park, welcome to Harmony. It's an honor to serve you tonight." Her voice was steady, but her eyes were bright with unshed tears. Neil looked at Kelly, really looked at her, with eyes that seemed to see straight into her soul.
She saw someone completely transformed from the inside out. The bitter, angry woman was gone, burned away by suffering and hard-won change, replaced by someone radiating genuine warmth and wisdom earned through pain. "Kelly," Nia said softly, her voice carrying forgiveness Kelly was still learning to accept. "How are you doing?" "I'm becoming someone my daughter can be proud of," Kelly replied, her voice thick with emotion. "Every single day, I'm working to become someone who deserves the incredible grace you showed me when I deserved nothing but consequences." She asked carefully, "May I see him?" Nia smiled and held up baby James. Kelly looked at the baby and tears fell freely. "He's perfect, absolutely perfect." Baby James had brown skin, thick black hair, chubby cheeks, and innocent eyes that held no knowledge of hatred or prejudice yet. Kelly whispered, "I'm going to make sure he grows up in a better world, I promise." Jae-won studied Kelly and saw genuine transformation. He extended his hand. "Thank you, Kelly, for choosing to change." Kelly shook his hand, crying openly, "Thank you for giving me the chance." A week later, Kelly led diversity training for Harmony staff, sharing her story with complete honesty. She showed them photos of Mrs. Dorothy, Mr. Park, Jasmine and baby Marcus, the Kim family. "These people taught me more about humanity than I ever learned by hating. They showed me grace I didn't deserve, and now I have to pay that forward." That evening in her small apartment, Emma mentioned a new student from China facing bullying. "I sat with her at lunch, told the other kids to stop." Kelly knelt beside her daughter, tears streaming. "I'm so proud of you, baby." "You taught me, Mom," Emma said, hugging her. "You taught me that everyone deserves kindness." Kelly held her daughter, overwhelmed with gratitude. She'd saved not just Emma's life, but her soul, breaking a cycle that could have continued for generations. Her phone buzzed, a text from Nia inviting her to speak at Columbia University. Kelly looked at the photo on her refrigerator, her with Jae-won, Nia, baby James, and Emma at a community event, all smiling with genuine warmth. Not erasing what happened, but building something new from the ashes. The woman she'd been had died. The woman she'd become was born from mercy. And every single day, she chose to honor that gift by making sure no one else had to learn through the devastating loss she'd experienced. That hate destroys everything it touches, especially the person who carries it. Because the most powerful force in the universe isn't hatred or revenge. It's the courage to choose love, even when you've been given every reason to choose hate. That's the power of true redemption. It doesn't just change the person who receives it. It changes everyone they touch for the rest of their lives, creating an endless chain of healing that stretches far beyond what any of us can see.